live. We have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Good morning, everybody. I am Tommy, and you're on the lifeboat. And the cat is on one. I hope everybody had a good day yesterday. Hope everybody enjoyed their holiday. If I'm going to talk to everybody here, and sadly, I'm only really talking to 2 people. So don't send me an email and say, was I talking to you? We'll make this easy. Number 1, if you're a woman, I'm not talking to you, because both of the emails I got were from men. So if you're a woman, this isn't for you. Just as easily, if you didn't send me an email yesterday, I'm not talking to you. This has nothing to do with you. But for the 2 people that did, there are people who sent me an email yesterday that said that they're leaving the lifeboat because I'm not tolerant. I'm intolerant, and I am part of a religion that hates. First of all, my religion doesn't hate. I've got all kinds of problems. I do. I have hate issues too. I have for a long time. I need to work on them. I do. I try to work on them, believe it or not. But my religion doesn't have any problems, and there's no hate involved. I gave people 5 minutes to leave. If you stuck around, listened to what I had to say, and were offended by it, well, then that really is on you, isn't it? But these people would like to go get high, and they would like an excuse for it. And yesterday, my explanation of my beliefs was a reason enough for those people to go get high. And for that, God bless you. You know, I'm glad that I could help. I mean that too, because if it wasn't me, it was going to be something else that you found yesterday to get high over. So it is what it is. The opposite of addiction is connection. We talk about this all the time. The opposite of addiction is connection. When I got sober and I got moved to the yard that Q was on, you hear me talk all the time about how I lived about 11 doors down from him, and I could just go and hang out in his cell, which, again, hanging out in a black man's cell is a dangerous thing anyway. But he was right down I was on the same tier, on the same top row. I was upstairs. He was upstairs, and it was convenient, super convenient. But it didn't start that way. When I first went to that prison, I was in the drug unit. And I don't mean everybody there was there to get sober. I mean, if you wanted to score dope, I was in the unit. The biggest dope dealers on the yard were all in my unit. And I never got high in there. I never got high on that prison. But it was hell. So I got a job in Unicor. And when I did, they moved me to the unit that Q was in. But prior to that, which took, it was either 2 or 3 months that I was in the unit with all the dope. And those nights were really difficult. Hanging out in those units, in that unit, each night was an absolute struggle like you just would not believe. It was a very, very difficult thing. So I would go to the library, because if you went to the library, you would get back from the library just before lockdown. That means that I didn't have to be in there watching people get high and nod out and all of that. So I would go to the library 6 nights a week. Why not 7? Well, because the library didn't open on Sunday. There was no library on Sunday because they needed staff for other things. And the other things that they needed staff for was religious services. And the religious services, whether you were Catholic or Mormon or Presbyterian or whatever, right? Those services were on Sunday nights. Now, they couldn't do every single religion every single Sunday. It wasn't possible. Too many religions, not enough staff and not enough time. So during the day, they had religious services all the time. On Sunday, you could always go to a religious service of your choosing. On Sunday night, it went on a rotation, right? So one week, the Catholics would have an opportunity to have the chapel on Sunday night. And I would be in the library 6 days a week at night until it was time to lock down. I would come back to the unit, I would sprint to my cell, and I would shut the door. And I would only have to hang out 20 minutes, and they would lock the door. And those 20 minutes were hell. Those 20 minutes were so difficult for me. Not only was there dope all over the unit, but there was one guy there that I knew from the first prison I ever went to. Not even on that sentence, on the previous sentence, but I'd known this guy now for years, and he sold dope. I knew him because I had bought tens of thousands of dollars worth of drugs from this guy. Oh, cat. Hopefully everybody is still here because the squirrel just stepped on. Okay. Please don't bite the camera. And that became a real issue. So I would get in my cell and I would wait for them to lock the doors. And it was that period of time that you had to wait before the doors would lock were hell. It really was. It was hell. So when Sundays rolled around, it was the hardest day for me to stay sober. And I learned something. I learned that the easiest way was to go to the religious service on Sunday night. Now, was it my religious service? No. In fact, only once a month was it my religious service. And I would attend any religion with the exception of the Satanists. And the reason was, and you hear people say, well, Satanists just believe, well, let me tell you what Satanists believe in prison. All right? They believe that evil will rule. That's what they believe in prison. And they used to go to the libraries, and during the day, if you had a drug problem, you could go to the library and sell your soul just once. But you could go sell your soul. And there were 2 guys in the corner that were there every single day of the week trying to buy souls. And they would brag about how many souls they had bought. Now, there are people who laughed at this. I knew guys who claimed to be this religion or that religion that would sell their soul anyway because these guys were just getting over on these guys. They just gave us $100 worth of dope, right? And all I did was sign a piece of paper. That doesn't mean that I gave up my soul. I don't know if it does or not. I really don't. I know that my soul's not for rent, much less for sale. It was everything I could do to not punch someone in the face that said to me, hey, you want to sell your soul? What the hell kind of stuff was that? Anyway, they got their night in the chapel too, because by law they had sued and all of that. So, but that was the only religion I wouldn't attend nightly services for on Sunday. So I have gone to virtually every other type of religion that you can possibly imagine. And I wasn't there necessarily for anything other than connection. These were people that were going to hang out and focus on something other than drugs. And that connection was so important to me that I was willing to go and look at any other religion. And I found that almost all, if not all, are very, very tolerant of everybody else. I don't really care too much what you believe. I also found that astoundingly, almost all of them believe the same book. And it's funny because the word denomination does not appear in that book. So for those people who say I'm intolerant because of what I believe, I'm an ass. I'm an ass, but I'm not intolerant. I have yesterday I started to go back through and look at the number of people that I've actually talked to one-on-one, because there's almost 4,000 people on the lifeboat, although there's less today than yesterday. There's almost 4,000 people on the lifeboat. I have not spoken to 4,000 people, not even close, but I've spoken to over 1,100, or at least, corresponded back and forth. And it may shock you to find that I've never once asked one of them what their religious affiliation was. I've never said, hey, are you a Christian? Because I don't want you on the boat if you're not. There was never any talk like that. None. What I was looking for with these people was connection. The things that made us the same, not the things that made us different. We all know what it's like to get up needing something. Before you can do anything, you had to have drugs. Before you could think, before you could shower, before you could eat, you had to have a fix of some kind. That was what the bond that all of us had, was that. I always ask people the same questions. What's your drug of choice? How long have you been using it? Those questions I ask everybody. What's your drug of choice? How long have you been using it? When's the last time you got high? Those are the questions I asked. I never asked anybody how much money their family made. I never asked them what part of the country they were from. None of that. Those things all don't matter. The only thing that matters is what connects us, not what divides us. If you are here and you are thinking about all of the things that divide us, I used to have a really cool exit sign on the door that I would point to. And there are people that have given me hell about that. But you know what? If you're here to cause division, then I hope you leave. And I hope you keep getting high until you find a reason to stop. I really do. And I hope that that reason is soon. But I don't want people who are just trying to cause division among a group of people who concentrate on what unites us. I'm going to pick on one person because I know she can take it. Chi-Chi and I do not believe anything even remotely close to one another in terms of what our connection to a higher power, to a spiritual connection, have nothing. Even you can't even find parallels of any kind, and it has never affected our relationship in any way. I love Chi-Chi. I think she's one of the nicest people I've ever met. And I remember once asking her if the fact that, from every once in a great while, I bring up my religion if it offended her. And she said, I love the fact that you are comfortable with what you believe. She said, I love the fact that you find peace in what you believe. The fact that religion should divide anybody, to me, is astounding. Now, there are places that are intolerant, right? There are countries that if you do not believe what they believe, they'll kill you. But the lifeboat isn't that country. Honestly, I'm blown away. And I'm only talking to a couple of people. I really am. I'm only talking to a couple of people. And I can't bring myself to block them, so I hope that they leave. I really do. Because there's no hate in me. Oh, there's plenty of hate in me. I take that back. But there's no hate in me when it comes to religion. I'm doing everything I can to stop hating people. I really am. I pray about it. I spend a lot of time thinking about it. But one of the people said, let me tell you why I hate Christianity. And they gave me a laundry list of why they hate what I believe. And it has nothing to do with what I believe. Let me explain a couple of things to people, and then I'll stop talking about this, I promise you. But if you attend a service that 300 people go to, that's not religion, right? It isn't. That's man's interpretation. So you went to one building where 300 people were assholes, pardon me, but that's got nothing to do with what I believe. Nothing. Because what I believe doesn't have hate in it. Anywhere. Never has. But if you want to judge my religion because of a minister that was cruel, or a religious person that was cruel, with all due respect, you're an ignoramus. That's like saying, I had a Honda once that somebody had crashed and then sold to me. They make terrible cars. I assure you, it's the same thing. When man gets involved with God, faith becomes religion. Religion is a word that does not appear in the Bible or in any holy text that I've ever read, and I've read all of them. Religion is man's interpretation of God. If man's interpretation left you screwed, that does not have anything to do with a higher power. Sorry, it doesn't. To judge the higher power based on something that man did, that's not intelligent. Plain and simple, it's not. We seek connection in every way we can with one another. And we don't talk about religion, but about 3 times a year. And I don't care what you believe. Right? Chi-Chi's Wiccan. Fantastic. I don't care. I don't. But on the days that are the most important to my religion, I'm not going to keep my mouth shut about what I believe. I'll warn the hell out of everybody so that you got time to haul the mail out of here. So if you find that offensive, I don't care. I don't. I don't ask a whole lot to do this. I don't. I come here and I do this because I want to help people. I ask very little. Christmas, Easter, there are a few days a year that my religion comes up. Because you know what? Without the God I believe in, right now, you'd be doing something else. Believe that. You would be doing something else at 5 o'clock in the morning. And you'd be doing something else at 5 o'clock at night. Because I don't do this without my God. And that's all I have to say about that. And if you're not the person that emailed me, then don't let this get to you. Right now, don't send me an email that said, were you talking to me? If you didn't send me an email yesterday, I'm not talking to you. Sorry. The opposite of addiction is connection. Make no mistake. The opposite of addiction is connection. If you would like to remain sober, may I recommend that you do everything within your power to find connection in as many ways as you can. If there is nobody on this boat that you email or stay in contact with or anything, then you better find some people that you do. And they should be people that you didn't get high with, because that's not connection. It isn't. If the rallying point behind your conversation with somebody is alcohol, there's no connection. If the rallying point behind your conversation with people is coke, heroin, meth, speed, whatever, that's not connection. Connection is when human beings discuss things that have nothing to do with drugs. Connection is somebody that you can reach out to and say, I'm hurting. And they're going to go, oh man, what can I do? Talk to me. What's going on? That's connection. You understand? Human connection is the opposite of addiction. When you are in the life, there is no connection at all. I knew hundreds of people at the pinnacle of my addiction. I knew hundreds of people. Every one of them got high. And the only thing that we had in common was the drugs. And every once in a while, you would actually make connection with one of those people. I've talked on here about a girl named Sherry. Sherry's the girl that I ran into about a week ago. Hadn't seen in almost 20 years. But we would find connection. And it was usually when we were out of dope and we were waiting for the guy to make the delivery. The two of us would have conversations that were deep and often beautiful, where we would talk about what happened to us, how we ended up where we were right then. You know, at 8 o'clock in the morning, waiting for somebody to deliver a substance so that we could face the day. Somebody to deliver a substance so that we wouldn't be sick. And we would be connecting. There would be real conversation and there would be real caring. And sometimes there would be tears. And then you'd hear a horn beep. And like throwing a light switch, it would be over. She would run down the stairs And while she was running down the stairs, I would get into the little bag that I carried and I would take out my works and I would put the spoon out because you didn't want that stuff sitting out there reminding you of the fact that you didn't have any dope, right? That's just frustrating. But the second that that horn beeped, I would get my stuff out and I would start working. And I can't tell you how many times. See, I robbed every drug dealer in the city, most of them multiple times. And you say, how do you rob a drug dealer multiple times? You chase his car. You see him in traffic and you follow him. I used to drive behind him with my hand on the horn, right? And these poor guys are from another country, right? They're from Mexico and they're scared crapless anyway. And I would just ride behind them. And I would do that for 3 or 4 miles. And they would pull over on the side of the road and just give me dope because they just didn't want me to draw any attention to them. And so, yeah, I had robbed all of them multiple times. So I had to go to Sherry, who had never robbed a drug dealer. And she had every phone number in the city. So she could call. And if somebody, dragged their feet, we'd call another one. The first one that showed up got to make the sale. And so many times I just had really deep, deep conversations with her, waiting for the dope man. There were a lot of other people that while you were waiting for the guy to show up, the conversations went like this. I swear to God, I'm going to kill that dude if he's late again. Don't they realize we need this? This isn't weed. And that went on for an hour, 45 minutes, whatever, till the guy showed up. And then when you heard the horn, your brain would already start releasing feel-good chemicals. So by the time Sherry would come running up the stairs, it didn't matter what our conversation was prior to that. That was over. I believe if there had been a time where we could have been together for 4 or 5 hours with none of that, that we may have ended up figuring out a way to get each other sober because we were so tired of it. We were so tired of the life in every way. But by the time she would come running back up the stairs with the dope in her hand, the connection was over. The connection between us was over. Now the connection to the dope was back, and nothing else mattered. Sadly, nothing else mattered for me for 3 decades. And then a miracle happened. A miracle. Make no mistake. When I ran into Sherry, she said, you don't look anything like you did. Like she didn't recognize me, I guess, because I've gotten old. But she said, what are you doing? And she gave me a phone number and I sent her over a link to the lifeboat. And she just texted back and said, you have got to be kidding. I said, no. She wasn't shocked that I was doing this. She was shocked that there wasn't an angle. She was shocked that somehow this wasn't paying for my fix. It is a miracle every time somebody gets sober. If somebody stays sober, the miracle is not that every day, the sky opens up and something amazing. What it is every day I'm connected with people who want to remain sober. Every day, the vast majority of contact that I have with anybody is about one thing: remaining sober. One of you might reach out to me once a month. Some of you might reach out to me once a week. There are a few of you, especially in the beginning, who will reach out once a day. But all day, every day, there's somebody that needs help of some kind that I connect with. And I would highly recommend it. I would highly recommend that you work on connection more than you work on anything else. Couple of shout outs. Heather Joy, who did a great show yesterday. Heather Joy just did 15 years. 15 years without opiates, which is just epic. I'm sorry, it really is. It's epic. You know how many miracles have to take place for 15 years to get there? How many times where you just thought about cashing in the chips and you got that phone call, or you thought about cashing in the chips and something happened that just got you through to the next day when all of a sudden you're solid again. A lot of miracles take place for someone to hit 15 years. And my brother Johnny is 4 years alcohol free today. And a lot of you feel like you know him. There's a lot of people here that are on the lifeboat and you've been watching him for a really long time. And you get this feeling that you really know the guy. And to an extent, you probably do. Trust me when I tell you, I probably know him a little better. And there was a time where I didn't think I would ever be able to say that Johnny was alcohol free for 2 weeks, much less 4 years. That's a miracle. It really is. It's a miracle that took place before there was a lifeboat. And amazingly, he and I had sat in a room with all those works I was talking about laid out in front of us when I told him this is what I wanted to do. It's bizarre, isn't it? I would be putting dope in a spoon, squirting water on it through a syringe, and getting out a cigarette lighter and literally looking over the top of the burning spoon to say, I think I could help people if I could get off of this shit. If I could get off of this, I really think I could help people get sober. I knew what it took to get sober. I just couldn't do it. It's the road that we walk is not an easy one. The road to get sober is the most difficult road that most people will walk in their life. And sadly, the normies, right? The people in this world who have never gone through what we go through have no perspective on just how difficult that road is. I told you guys a couple of weeks ago, I got invited to be a panelist on a interview of 5 of us that were talking about sobriety and our take on sobriety. And one of the questions was, if you could have one wish that had nothing to do with you or anyone you were working with, but that you think would help people get sober, what would it be? And the take on this was pretty cool. There was a lot of people that had interesting thoughts. Mine was, I wish everybody who is not an addict could feel what it feels like for one day. For one 24-hour period, I wish those people would understand what it felt like to need a substance more than you need love. To need a substance more than you need food or comfort or sex or anything else. I would like them to have 24 hours of that. And I wouldn't want it explained. I would like them to not know you could make it stop. And I would like the average person on this planet to go 24 hours with that feeling. And you know what? It would change the world. The number of people who would get sober because of that 24-hour period would be incredible. Parents would go to their kids and say, I get it. You know, husbands would go to wives and say, I get it. It would be epic in terms of helping people get sober. Hold on one second. Sorry, people. Sorry. You know, the other day I shut a show down 30 minutes into the show because somebody had said that they were really going through it, and they said they didn't want to see the sun come up again. And I've been there. I've literally said, if I see the sun come up again tomorrow, I'm taking my own life. Like, I've been there. And so I reached out and I talked to this person for about 4 hours. And by the grace of God, the person is still with us. I got an email from somebody that said, what if I needed that next half hour? How about that? I said, there's somebody talking about taking their life, and someone who was watching the boat thought, F that guy. What about me? That's addiction. That's addiction. I got another email from somebody that said, don't feel bad. Remember, the shepherd left the 99 sheep to go look for the one that was lost. You know what that is? That's connection. That's the difference between addiction and connection. Addiction is me. What's in it for me? This is about me. Connection is, man, go help that person. We'll be here. Save that person. Quick. Go. What makes this channel really unique is not the fact that everybody here is an addict, right? You could go to 90% of the bars in this country tonight, walk in and find more people that are addicted to something than you could on the lifeboat, right? In any of our live chats. What makes this channel unique is the connection. It's the fact that, in spite of the fact that many of you, I've never, ever even seen what you look like. And that goes for everyone else, right? You don't know what each other look like. You don't know. There's just not much that you know other than the fact that you're a drug addict trying to get sober. Yet we care enough about people to get up in the morning on days that we might not want to be here just to support somebody else. There are people who are sober and have been and have no intention of using, but they come here every day to support other people. You see a lot of that on YouTube, do you? I don't. I don't see a lot of that on the internet. I don't see a lot of that in person. I really don't. I think it used to be that way. I think that sobriety meetings used to be that way. You know? Do you know that in federal prison, they did away with making people go to NA or AA? You used to be court ordered. So when I started going to federal prison, I had to go to AA or NA meetings. I got to choose. And I would go to NA and there would be 250 people in one of the meetings. The reason there were 250 is because they capped it at 250. They didn't want more than 250 inmates in a place at one time because then it would take more guards to watch them. So you had to sign up for a meeting, and if you didn't go to it, you were screwed. You were in trouble because they had to shoehorn all 250 in. And if you didn't make it, then you weren't going to get your early termination. You were going to lose good time and all of that. And those meetings were a joke. Literally. People just clowned on the people that were doing the meetings. Very often, people who came in from the street volunteered to come in and tell their story and try to help individuals. And there'd be people mocking them, usually about the most shallow of things. You know, boy, this dude's fat. You know, or how much meth do you think this dude did? Look at his teeth. Like, this is the kind of crap that went on every day. And then I got out, got in more trouble, and went back. And when I went back, I remember saying, you know, I got to do AA or NA. No, we don't do that anymore. There was still NA and there was still AA. Only when you went to NA, there was about 30 people there. And they wanted to be there. They were there for connection. They were there to find people that were fighting to stay sober in a place where you could get any dope you wanted without having to pay for it until later. They were there for an hour of their day that they couldn't F up and go get dope. And during that time, I saw things that you don't see in federal prison. You would walk through the door and a guy would greet you and he would give you a name tag. And of course, nobody uses real names. What do you want on the name tag? What do they call you? They weren't looking for names. So you saw things on name tags like psycho, killer, things like that. But the guy at the door might be black or he might be white, but he was going to hug every person that came through the door. And it didn't matter what race you were. You don't see that. You don't see that in prison. You might catch that at a voluntary drug class or at a church service of any kind. That was the only other place. I've told the story before on the boat. I don't know how many times. But once a year, you get a banquet, which is really funny because the food sucks. It's, for all intents and purposes, it's the same meal that they're going to serve on Friday of the following week. They'll just serve it to you. The point is that you get together with people who believe the same thing. And I've told the story where a guy came up and said, hey, man, that stuff you said in the back, it changed my life. I don't know what I said to the guy. I've told the story. But what was amazing was this was a Christian banquet. And he came up and said, is it okay with you guys if I sit down just real quickly? Because the hate is so ingrained in that building that a black man didn't think he could sit at a white guy's table at a Christian banquet. It's pretty messed up. It's pretty messed up. And they wonder why the people in there do dope every day. If connection is the opposite of addiction, then hate is the fuel that keeps addiction going. It really is. Hate is one of the worst emotions in the entire world. And sadly, our addiction breeds it. Doesn't it? If your substance of choice is something that you can watch other people do and control, I hate people that do opiates. I had friends that wasn't their drug. They did meth or they did whatever. But they'd say, I'd go over and I'd go, man, I'm sick as hell. Really? Because I got like 4 Oxy 80s, man. I've had them in here like a year and a half. Instead of thinking, oh man, thank you, I'd think, you had 4 Oxys for a year and a half? Man, I hate you. How the hell could you have 4 Oxys for a year and a half and not do it? I can't imagine. I can't imagine if my substance of choice was alcohol. I would hate everybody that could drink. It's a difficult thing, the road that we walk. Wouldn't it be great if for 24 hours everybody had to feel it? Seriously, think of how much that would change the face of sobriety forever. So I think we need to concentrate a little bit more on connection. For real. I think that one of the things that that we've done with the best of intents may have shut us off almost. I love the idea of a 5. But if you've got 5 people on the lifeboat and you don't talk to anybody else, man, meet a couple more people. Send somebody an email. Ask them questions. Man, how long have you been using? How long have you been sober? What do you think got you into it? I'll be honest. When I first started to get sober, the only connection that I had was Q. Even if I went to meetings or anything else, I thought everybody in the room was stupid. Q was far more intelligent than I was. And that was huge for me. Really. It's easy to be an elitist in prison because you hear things and you just go, you're in here for what? I'll give you a great example. There was a guy that I went to every single drug class I could go to. Every single one. I didn't understand why I was going. I didn't. I wish I did. I wish I knew then what I know now, because I think I would have gotten a lot farther along. But I wasn't there for connection. I was just there so that I wouldn't be doing dope, because in the unit, if I could get out of the unit, I was safe. But there was a guy in there, and his name, his prison name, people called him Weasel. And I don't think it was an insult, because Weasel was like 6'6" and about 290 pounds. He's not a guy you would have wanted to insult. Tattoos all over his face. But you would, whether you wanted to speak or not, you had to. was part of the program. So it didn't have to be a long time, but you got up and you said what your crime was, what landed you in prison, what your drug of choice was, what unit you were in, and that was about it. A lot of people wanted to talk more than that because they were comfortable or whatever, but Weasel got up and he talked about his crime, why he was in prison. He went to prison for bank robbery. He went in, he used a gun, which is not a good idea when you rob a bank because you get a lot more time. But he used a gun, he robbed a bank, and his girlfriend turned him in. He had actually gotten away with 3 bank robberies. And then one night he pistol whipped his girlfriend, and she called the authorities and turned him in. Makes sense. If you rob banks, you probably shouldn't pistol whip anybody, especially a female that you live with. But she turned him in, and he went to prison. And he got out after 10 years. He robbed the bank in his 20s. He got out in his mid-30s, and he went to a halfway house, and he got a job, and was doing everything he was supposed to, had a bank account, had everything. And then one day at work, the guy said, we're going to be doing a double shift. And he thought, oh, man, I can't do a double shift. And he said to the guy, number one, I have to be back at a halfway house. And the guy said, I'll call the person that works at the halfway house. If you want to work, I can get you the other 8 hours. And he said, and number two, there's no way I'll be able to stay awake. And one of the people there said to him, I got a bag of meth. Weasel's drug of choice. If you want to work a double, just take a couple of hits off of this thing. And Weasel, of course, decided to work a double. And he used. And he continued to use. And 2 days later, having not slept, he went into his bank to clear out his bank account and buy more meth. So he walked in and filled out a withdrawal slip for $250, and he handed it to the woman, and he said, this is everything I got in the account. If I have to leave a little in there, then just give me whatever you can and leave what needs to be left. And the woman said, there's no money in this bank account. In fact, it's overdrawn. So Weasel said, what do you mean? And she said, you took money out of the bank that isn't there. You're $40 overdrawn. You owe us $40. There's no money in this account. So Weasel said, well, then just give me everything you got in the top drawer. He handed her his ID and then robbed the bank. Suffice to say, it did not take a long time for the authorities to find him. He left his ID. He took out $3,000 out of the top drawer, not much. And he went and bought dope, got spun out, and then went back to the halfway house, which was the address on the driver's license he left at the bank. And they weren't waiting for him. They figured no one would be stupid enough to go back but the halfway house let him in, called the FBI. The FBI came, picked him up, and he went back to prison for 23 years. Hearing the story, you're just thinking to yourself, you got to be kidding. You got to be kidding. But that's the pull. Right? Who in their right mind would rob a bank after telling a person who you were? No makeup, no nothing. You hand somebody your ID with your address on it and then say, give me the money anyway. Who in their right mind would do that? Well, it's a pretty simple answer, isn't it? Hey, Luke Skywalker. Good to see you. Nobody in their right mind would do that. Sadly, and this is a terrible thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway, because the whole honesty thing, I think, is it's a bug that has bitten me, I guess. Weasel doesn't have a chance. He doesn't. He was one of those people that I watched, and after attending a bunch of drug classes, I started my own because I didn't think they were doing a very good job. Like the concept of addiction and connection, not something that they explored. A lot of the things that are more modern approaches to drug addiction was not something that they had ever discussed. So I, powerless, right? Crazy cat. Powerless. Boy, is that a great comment. And that's what it is, isn't it? It's I'm not a 12-stepper guy. I'm not. But boy, oh boy, if you don't come to the realization that you have no power over a substance, you're not going to get clean. And I know people that really struggle, people on the lifeboat who really struggle with the concept of powerlessness. And the ass wagon that I did the panel with, who was telling me that addiction doesn't exist. It's a falsehood. And the reason that people believe that they're addicted is because when you surrender your power to anything, you're going to end up just the dumbest crap in the whole world. The guy is so lucky I was doing this virtually. I'd have slapped him. I'm not even kidding you. I wouldn't have gotten out of the room without slapping this idiot. I know that's not very Christian and it's not very intelligent, but I probably would have hit this dude because it's just plain stupid. But he said that the reason that it's not a disease and it's what it is that society has made people believe that there's something wrong with them and that they're powerless. Everybody can control. They just need to learn blah, blah, blah. You know where power comes from? I love this illustration. And I think I stole it, by the way. I don't remember where I got this, but I love it. The way you win a fight with your drug of choice is never getting in a fight with your drug of choice. I took back all power in my life when I admitted I had no power. The people that can't seem to wrap their brain around that concept struggle mightily with recovery. But it starts with the admission that I can't control that crap. After I take the first one, I control the hell out of opiates because I don't ever take the first one. That's my control. That very first one. I can say no to that one, then I can say no to everything. But if I say yes to the first one, you'll be saying, who in their right mind robs a bank again after going to prison for robbing a bank? Except it'll be me. I won't leave an ID or do something like that, but I have the potential to go back and rob a bank. I promise you I do. I have the potential to do a lot of really, really stupid things if I start doing dope again. You know, as much as what that guy did was stupid, I got out of prison and was on federal probation, and I was buying guns or stealing guns or a combination of both, and then illegally selling them. I was a gun broker while on federal probation, an illegal gun broker while on federal probation. You talk about just stupidity. I had a federal probation officer that used to come once a month, and he would come on the first Monday of every single month. It wasn't very difficult to plan for his visit. And then one Monday, he didn't come. Neither did Tuesday or Wednesday. So the following Monday, I knew he was coming, but he didn't. And then one day, he did. And when he knocked on the door, I had a blanket, thank God, but I had a blanket laid out on the floor in the living room. And on that blanket was 37 guns. Somebody was coming by to go shopping, and I had this big, huge blanket laid out, thick one. And I picked that blanket up, clank, 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 all these guns. And I ran into the back bedroom, and I threw the blanket on top of the bed, so it sort of face down. And my probation officer walked through that house, and he went into the bedroom and looked around. The bed was obviously not made. Who in their right mind would do something like that on probation? Just as dumb as Weasel. For real. I mean, what Weasel did really just makes you scratch your head. Maybe because I was a bank robber, but I just think to myself, you gave him your ID. Powerlessness. Powerlessness. I had relapsed. I told the story. I had a stroke, and they gave me morphine for pain. And then they wrote me a prescription for pain meds. And my probation officer said, we'll help you get off of them, when the time comes. But see, it didn't work like that for me. There's no getting off of them. So I started doing heroin, and I started to run out of money. And a guy came by my house and said, I'm selling my gun collection for dope. And there were 40 guns. Truthfully, he had stolen them from his dad, but I didn't know that at the time. When he asked for the money, I started doing the math. And the kid wanted about $110 a gun. So I said, have a seat. And I had dope. I said, have a seat. And I gave him dope to fix on. And I went over and I started looking up guns. And the first one that I picked was a Beretta, Pietro Beretta, break shotgun, double barrel. You know, kind of you go, shove 2 shells in. I looked up the value of the gun. It was $23,000. The last one that had sold that was like this. The serial number was in Roman numerals. It's a really old gun. $20,000+. The guy wants $100 for every gun there. Honestly, at that point, it didn't matter what he came with. If he was selling silver or gold or diamonds at that price, I was buying whatever. So I bought them all. And then when I went to start selling them, I realized just how much money there was in guns. And I went from being a bank robber to a gun broker. Stupidity. Fell into possession of a firearm, 928C. Like the laws I was breaking carried a lot more time than the things that I had done. And for the first time in my life, I was breaking a law. I didn't know how much time that law carried. And I didn't care. I was so far gone. I was powerless. And boy, you talk about a rabbit hole of squirreliness this show has been. The opposite of addiction is connection. Reach out to people. Get connections. They don't have to be people who are drug addicts. I got an email from somebody that was super confused on this subject. They said, I really don't want to connect with a bunch of people. You don't have to connect with people who are drug addicts. Connect with your kid and watch what it does for your sobriety. Connect with your family. Connect with the people you work with. Connect with anybody where the rallying point is something other than dope. If you connect with people at church, it's probably going to be around God, but you will build a connection. If you connect with somebody who you have the same hobby as, right? Let's say you're into watches, or you're into archery, or you're into knitting. Doesn't matter what the rallying point is. What matters is the connection. And you know what, people? This show has now become like a 50-minute show because the sun is coming over that mountain and I don't miss them anymore. I lost too many of them in the past. I'm either going to have to start firing this show a little early, or we're just going to have a 50-minute morning show because every day it seems the sun is coming up just a little bit quicker. 2 days after my twin boys were born, the California Department of Justice showed up at my house and took all my guns. That was almost 3 years ago, and I am fighting now to get them back. That's tough. I am a firm believer of in the Second Amendment. I really am. I'm sorry to hear that, MAGA. It sucks. It really does. That sucks. Where are you going? Okay. She was in a basket until a second ago. It's actually been a really good kitty all day too. Give him a bye, squirrel. What do you think? Ow! What are you doing? Ow! Ow! It's not very nice. Ow! Cat bites my finger. Did you see that? Alrighty, peeps. I'm going to be back tonight. Congratulations to Heather, 15 years, and congratulations to my brother Johnny on 4 years of sobriety. Stop biting the camera. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville. That cat chewing on my finger right now, that's squirrel. We will see you this evening, people. Connect. Reach out. And if you sent me an email yesterday, you know who you are. Have a great day, peeps. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and this was The Lifeboat. Have a great day. Make it a great day.